A few months back, I made a video about hints of a potential Faye project coming up. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that a Laufey prequel has incredible potential and would be an amazing direction to go for Santa Monica for many reasons, which I will now state. First of all, as we all know, Ragnarok was effectively the end of the Norse saga. Although I don't think Kratos will be leaving the Nine Realms right away, the proper story in Norse mythology is over. So a prequel would be a great way to spend more time in this world and with these characters. And not only that, we could see a more traditional and alive look at the realms. 2018 and Ragnarok saw this world in its most run-down, desolate, sad, and destroyed state, ravaged by Odin for centuries. It works perfectly for those stories, but setting a game in the past would allow us to see the realms in a much more thriving state, the one that Mimir described in his tales. Seeing the giants alive before they left, seeing regular people and not just reavers living in Midgard, the mythological takes on the gods that we've heard, Thor at the height of his power in the middle of the Jotnar Raising campaign, Odin as a warrior and not a mage. It'll give us an opportunity to see more gods we haven't seen yet in the Norse saga, or Mimir with a body, and so on and so on. And of course, putting Faye in the midst of it, a character who had more interactions and realm travel experience than practically anyone in this mythology, would be a perfect lens to show what the realms were like before Kratos' arrival. Of course, one of the most important aspects of modern God of War games is the story and the character arc, and I believe the two Norse games gave us a lot of hints and information about Faye that form a cohesive narrative. This would open the veil of mystery a little bit and reveal what she was really like alive and not as a weird dream or a corpse. This would allow to explore her relationship with the Huldra brothers, one they've been weirdly secretive about, and with the rest of the realms and characters who were around at the time. And perhaps most importantly, we'll get to see her struggles and a certain arc that she goes through, and not just any arc. What we learn in Ragnarok hints that Faye's arc is extremely similar to Kratos's, so this game could really show why Kratos and Faye connected as strongly as they did. And so I've gathered everything we know about Laufey's Guardian years and created a story outline consisting of 3 distinct chapters, each reflecting a specific part of Kratos' journey. This is obviously my own fanfiction, pretty much. Santa Monica can take a completely different approach since I made this based solely on what we know from the lore and also just stuff that I would want to see in a game like this. But before I delve into the chapters, let me set the scene of where we're at in the timeline. The year is approximately 130 years BJJ. BJJ means before Journey to Jotunheim, or 2018. It's like BBY means before Battle of Yavin in Star Wars lore, I think you get it. Like I mentioned before, the realms are definitely doing better than they did in Kratos' games, which doesn't mean they're doing great. Odin is actively oppressing the realms, Thor is on the hunt for the giants in Midgard, and the Aesir are disrupting peace and pushing the realms into disarray. Recently, the Aesir launched an attack on Tyr's temple and successfully abducted the god of war, who, along with Faye, was helping the giants retreat to their home realm. Most recently, Sindri and a freshly recolored Brock gift Laufey the Just the Leviathan, an axe designed to equal Mjolnir itself and hopefully counteract the Thunder God's bloody campaign against the Jotnar. This is where we're at, and with that, we delve into Chapter 1. This is the part where things don't go super great. I believe an appropriate start for the game would be Faye learning that the giants plan to leave the realms and put their souls into marbles, except for this one demented grandma, because she's fucked up and is not invited. So Faye makes the difficult decision to split apart with her kind and officially focus on being the Guardian full time, helping all the Jotnar return home and generally fight the Aesir oppression however she can. The focus of the first chapter would be on Svartalfheim, more specifically the Dwarven Rebellion that's been discussed in Ragnarok. We'd get to spend more time with Durlin, who'll hopefully have more than 2 minutes of screen time this time around, Brock and Sindri, of course, and so on. The thing about the Dwarven coup is that it failed. The whole chapter would basically lead to a huge downer. Nothing works out for Faye and her allies. The dwarves fall under complete control of the Aesir, the Huldra gets shunned by their own people, Nidavellir is sealed from realm travel, and Durlin gets bonked on the head into submission by Heimdall, whose return I'm sure many would appreciate. This, in a way, reflects Kratos' life up to the end of God of War 2, to a much less extreme extent, obviously. Kratos suffered loss after loss after loss after loss after loss after loss, never-ending pain and suffering until he finally had enough. And we all know what came after that. This is when Faye gets pissed off. Although she didn't suffer as much as Kratos, no one has, she's gone through plenty of suffering. The constant oppression of the realms, the genocide of her people, the hard choice to leave the giants behind, and the disastrous loss of Svartalfheim. After years of fighting, that is enough to send Faye over the edge. What does she do? She goes to Vanaheim. This would set this chapter at approximately 119 BJJ, the year Odin banished Freya to Midgard and the peace between Asgard and Vanaheim broke again. She could potentially team up with Freyr, who's surprised by the Aesir return and is struggling to be a leader in his sister's absence. This is completely unrelated, but I would love to see Freya's golden boar Gulinbursti, because a giant battle boar would be freaking awesome. That's it, sorry, I digress. But we all know what this chapter is really about. The fight with Thor, the subject of Faye's revenge, the god who caused the most harm to her people. The details of this confrontation are sparse, but we know enough. Thor is drunk at a bar, and all of a sudden, Faye attacks. Leviathan meets Mjolnir, their powers equal, and their clash causes a frozen lightning to form. But worst of all, the battle causes many Vanir casualties and renders the village where they met uninhabitable. Thor gets away, and Faye is left to take in the consequences. This is obviously God of War 3. Kratos at the height of his rage, revenge his only goal, but at the end, he is greeted with the reality. His rage, his revenge didn't take away the pain, they only caused destruction and pain of innocence, those who simply stood in his way. This is what Faye goes through. A village is not an entire pantheon, but the point is the same. Blinded by rage, by the desire to kill Thor, she caused death to the very people she was trying to protect, which leads us to the final chapter. After the devastation in Vanaheim, Faye realizes that her anger led her too far, and that she is tired of fighting the way she has been, head-on, fighting fire with fire, that there are other ways to fight. I would set this chapter in Midgard circa 112 BJJ, the year the giants officially make the final retreat to Jotunheim. And Laufey is the one who helps them achieve that by causing some kind of distraction for the Aesir, while the Jotnar manage to escape home using the gateway at the top of the mountain. This is perhaps when Faye meets Freya, who is now the banished witch of the woods, and would no doubt be eager to herd the Aesir as much as she can, even without her warrior spirit. Faye gets a final chance to join her kind and leave the Nine Realms, but she refuses, and stays as the guardian in Midgard. But she won't be fighting anymore, not directly. She has hit the lows of war and revenge, and she understands that this is not the way to defeat the madness of Odin. She has a different path and a different destiny. As Sindri put it,
she chose, well, you. Both of you. I suppose she figured that was the best chance for the giants to live on.
The theme of fate would no doubt be integral in a Faye game. The giants are powerful seers, knowing precisely what will happen to Kratos and Atreus, and no doubt to Faye as well. But what Ragnarok taught us is that no one is bound by their fate. Fate is nothing more than a prediction based on a person's traits, and to change their fate, one must change themselves. And Faye is the one who tries to show this to Kratos and Atreus. She destroyed the final part of the Jotunheim mural. She is supposedly the one who drew Kratos' new future on his shrine, not a future set in stone, but a potential path to follow. We can then assume that Faye herself struggled with her fate and her future and somehow changed it herself before showing that it's possible to her family. This is, of course, something that can be explored in her game. Faye is a warrior, a guardian, with revenge and fighting passion in her heart. This is who she is. Perhaps her initial fate was to die fighting like Kratos, we don't know at this point. But she avoided that fate because she changed herself, and by doing that, she learned how to change others. Which brings us to the climax of this potential story, and for some, the sole reason for this game's existence, the fight with Kratos. Of course, this would be incredible and unique from a gameplay perspective to be on the receiving end of Ghost of Sparta's wrath, unless you played the fighting games or Shovel Knight. But remember, it's important to have significant story reasons for anything in this game to happen, and story reasons there are. First of all, it would show how much Faye had changed by comparing this with the fight with Thor. Then, she was bent by revenge, relentless and angry. In the Kratos fight, she is fierce but reluctant, fighting only out of necessity and self-defense more than anything. Which is exactly the reason Kratos is fighting at this point in his life too. We have always heard and known Kratos' connection to Faye through his words, but witnessing it through her lens, after seeing everything she's been through, would put a whole new perspective on their relationship as we know it. We could learn that their connection and love was not born of empathy, but of sympathy. There is a reason why I paralleled Faye's arc to Kratos's. One, because the crater incident and hints of Faye's rage sound suspiciously similar to God of War 3, but also because it would show how similar they really are. Both powerful warriors with a knack for vengeance, both tired of that fighting and that anger. Playing through Faye's side of that would give an entirely new appreciation for why they fell in love and connected. But perhaps most importantly, it will show Faye's new approach to defeating the Aesir. Instead of fighting head-on, she chose a different path, kindness and love, to open her heart and change lives through compassion. Laufey's third chapter arc is Kratos' Norse arc. At the end of Ragnarok, Kratos learns that fighting for victory, no matter how noble the cause, will always lead to pain and revenge. But fighting to protect, fighting to provide to those who need it, is what's truly important. Faye recognizes that after the fiasco in Vanaheim, and the first subject of her opening her heart and showing compassion is Kratos. By the time they meet, some 70 years after Chapter 3 starts, Faye is strong enough in spirit not only to forgive herself for what she's done, but has enough compassion and patience to heal another broken, lost soul that she once was. And this is how she wins. By showing Kratos support, trying to help him overcome the terrible guilt and self-hatred he's feeling, she is able to ultimately achieve her goal. Her last wish forced her husband and son to go out into the world, and through a very long, complex chain of events, end the tyranny of Odin. But at the same time, that two-game journey gave purpose to both Kratos and Atreus, and reunited her with her kind, even if it is after her life ended. All this rambling ultimately is about how putting the meeting of Kratos and Faye at the climax could be an incredible potential ending to this game that concludes Faye's arc and sets up a strong connection to the main Norse saga. That was just the story part. The video's not even over yet. Another reason to make this game is the lore and the answering of the questions. One of the big important characters I haven't mentioned at all yet is Jormungandr. The serpent is significant for a few reasons. First off, he is the only giant besides Faye to stay in Midgard and the only one of her kind she would have been able to interact with for over a century up to her death. Second is the one missing piece of Jormi's story. In the Norse games, we witnessed most of it. His birth, being sent back in time by Thor, and his modern seaweed bearded self. The obvious piece of the puzzle that's missing is his appearance in Midgard in the past. And wouldn't you know it, it happens pretty much at the time I said the game, specifically in this gap, because Sindri calls the Leviathan after Jormungandr. The only hint Corey really gave after Ragnarok on the future of the series, as it happens, regards Yorimi's time travel. Whether it implies that he was sent to that point in time on purpose somehow, or simply that we will see it happening at some point, I'm not sure. But Corey's hint on the presence of Jormungandr and time travel could mean a certain thing. The Faye game could give us the answer to, let's say it together, 3, 2, 1, who blew the horn? Yes, Ragnarok left a few mysteries unresolved, and the Faye prequel could be the perfect place to give answers, if Santa Monica wants to. I have no idea how the horn blowing at that specific time would in any way be related to anything else going on in this game, but it could still be addressed so people can shut up about it finally. Maybe Corey is hinting at a time travel adventure, I am not sure, but here you go, here's the hint, white on black. Other things the game could potentially delve into are the details of Kratos' arrival, like who that hooded woman from the novelization is, if that's still canon at all, and anything else, whatever you like. This is a hypothetical video, so you can imagine things being shown and explained to your heart's content. I personally don't think we need an answer to everything. Why Faye died, for example, I don't think is important at all, but if you want to know, maybe this game could give an answer. Lastly, I want to address this. We here at the Midgard Chronicle Sole Proprietorship do not condone or spread any unconfirmed rumors or leaks or any information from an unofficial source. That being said, if hypothetically there is a Ragnarok DLC in the works, a Faye prequel would be a perfect option for that, as opposed to an Atreus adventure, for example. For one, a Faye game takes place in Norse mythology. You wouldn't need to invent a new art style, gods and laws, most of the lore, it's all already done. The locations already exist, it's just a matter of redecorating them for the time period. A lot of the characters would be returning, there is no need for designing or casting, and that includes Deborah Ann Wall as Faye, who I'm certain can carry a main role. A lot of the gameplay would be returning, the mechanics for the Leviathan axe, the Guardian shield, and the bow are already in place. Besides, the story could be very complementary to Ragnarok, the one I came up with at least. 2 of the 3 chapters are based on the events mentioned in that game. The Dwarven Rebellion? What was that about? Play the DLC to find out. Faye fought Thor in Vanaheim. I want to see that. Oh, you can, in the DLC. And also the aforementioned themes of fate and Kratos and Faye meeting. Not to mention, the chapter structure works well as a DLC. That's pretty much what Spider-Man PS4 did. These chapters work better as standalone stories than one cohesive narrative anyway. Each with its theme and the time skips and whatnot. It doesn't have to be a DLC, obviously, it can be its own thing. All the cost and time cutting benefits still apply, so why not have a Miles Morales sized game for a Laufey adventure, right? So yeah, here it is. I spent a long time coming up with this ridiculously detailed concept, hyping myself and yourself for something that probably will never happen. So that's good. But regardless, thank you for your time and for listening to my pitch.